Hello and welcome to Exposed News Outlet. My name is Andrea and I'm your host. If I could have you please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already and check the bell for all my latest notifications and videos. Please like my video and share it if you could to all of your platforms. It helps to get my message out to the masses at this important time. And without further ado, let's jump into this one. I just wanted to touch base with everybody on a couple things that I have noticed haven't been really brought up by a lot of the undecided voters or people that I've heard talking in general, and these are things that have been keep being brought up and repeated over and over as well. One of them is actually when Trump was in office, he basically grifted as much as possible. He would charge the Secret Service members over $1,000 per night, per room, to stay in his hotels while they were protecting him. With taxpayer money, ridiculous. Meanwhile, his kids actually benefited profusely from Saudi Arabia actually donated over $2 billion to Jared Kushner and Ivanka as they were doing shadow government and deals. And now, Elon Musk is trying to buy this election for them, and it's a huge issue with conflict of interest, considering Elon has so many contracts with the government, and a lot of his fortune has actually come from government contracts and funding. In fact, a lot of these, like Tesla and Starlink and other SpaceX, they have different violations and regulations that they haven't met the mark and they've been violated with, and he's looking for a way in, so that, because Trump's already promised him a role on his cabinet, and if he gets in, he'll basically do his own oversight and completely, these regulations and are actually for our safety, the consumers, so it's for our own good.
The Trump campaign spending millions on political ads in battleground states in which it accuses Kamala Harris of supporting taxpayer-funded transgender surgeries for prisoners and migrants. Such ads have run more than 30,000 times.
30,000 times.
Primarily during NFL and college football games and events with high male viewership. But here's the catch. That policy was
the policy that they were attacking Harris for just talking about.
Right. She was talking about what the law is. That policy was carried out by the Trump administration, as explained by a new report in the New York Times. And now the Lincoln Project is out with a new ad calling out Trump for his hypocrisy on his attacks on Harris over gender-affirming care for prisoners. Take a look.
Have you seen this ad? Donald Trump is spending millions attacking Kamala Harris on a desperate lie. Taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners and illegal aliens is a Trump administration policy. He's attacking Kamala Harris for his own record, and he thinks you're too dumb to get it. He's gaslighting America because Trump is for he, him. Kamala is for us.
Retired Marine General John Kelly, who served as Donald Trump's chief of staff for a year and a half, in his own words on tape, sounding all of the alarms about Donald Trump's lack of character and basic fitness for the office. John Kelly sat down for 3 on-the-record interviews with New York Times reporter Mike Schmidt. Each answer that he gives is stunning on its own, But taken together, that composite paints an alarming portrait of an ex-president. It is a warning for all of us to take Donald Trump seriously and literally when he talks about wanting to govern as a dictator.
What do you think? Do you think he's a fascist?
Well, I'm looking at the definition of fascism. It's a far-right, authoritarian, ultra-nationalist political ideology and movement characterized by a dictatorial leader, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition, belief in a natural social hierarchy. So certainly, in my experience, those are the kind of things that he thinks will work better in terms of running America. You know, again, back to this issue of, democracy is complicated, messy to operate, probably the worst kind of government there is, except for all the other ones. I think Churchill once said that. And again, our Constitution, our founders built in to the Constitution and to the way our government operates, built in a lot of checks and balances, and didn't design the government to be streamlined and whatnot. So, but certainly the former president is in the far right area. He's certainly an authoritarian. Admires people who are dictators. He has said that. So he certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, for sure.
So that's something that we definitely have to watch. This is going to be one of the highest stakes elections since 1860 or 1940. In 1 week, people will have their part to do of history. This election literally decides whether we move forward from a democratic republic or if we turn into an authoritarian dictatorship, literally. If Trump is to take office, the Washington Post has warned that Trump would kill Social Security within 6 years. It would be dead, bankrupt, within 4 to 6 years. The Economist reports that America is the envy of the world with a record economy, literally leaving all of the other economies in the dust. Wall Street Journal is reporting economists say that Trump's policies will be terrible for the deficit, terrible for inflation, terrible for interest rates, terrible all, and it would bring a recession once again by next year.
You know, I watch Shark Tank all the time.
See, I knew I liked you.
And then I often, depending on, because, there are a lot of reruns, I'll look it up to see how the company's doing.
Well, hopefully mine are doing well. Hey.
How are you, Mark?
Good. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
So excited to talk to you.
I am excited to talk with you.
So I know it's a grind with an NBA season going city to city. So what does it feel like? I mean, just physically.
Long days. I start every day. I work out every morning.
And what's your workout?
Elliptical. And then I go all day long.
And are you just exhausted at the end of the day?
Your body doesn't lie to you when you first wake up in the morning.
Yep.
And then your brain kicks in and says, everything will be fine, right?
And that workout just gets you going.
And it gets me going every morning.
So here's the other question I'd like to ask. We've talked about tech and innovation, how important it is to the economy and just dominating globally, right? Do you ever geek out at all?
All the time.
So tell me about that.
So my mother was a scientist, right? So I grew up as a kid going to the lab. I grew up seeing her have a passion about, she wanted to end breast cancer. She wanted to find a cure, and she did make breakthroughs in breast cancer research.
That's amazing.
And that's where the source of my geeking out,
comes from, right? But so now I got to ask, I was at your speech in Pittsburgh, and you talked about it took only a year to build the Empire State Building. Yeah. And you said that you were going to cut permitting, you were going to cut the time for licenses,
the red tape,
all the red tape. So how do we take that and use it to cut the deficit?
So part of it is we cannot be rote in terms of how we think about deficits to say government spends too much, because I think that is overly simplistic.
I agree.
we have to ask, are we spending it in a smart way such that we are yielding a return on that investment?
Just
that
like a
is,
regular business.
But this is exactly right.
I get all that right. So here's kind of the angle I always look at tariffs on. I've known Donald Trump 25 years. He used to be okay on trade policy, but over the last 25 years, he's just lost it.
I don't think he pays attention to the details, and you can't be president of the United States
Unless you pay attention to the details.
Yeah, that's fine if he wants to, just give speeches in random places for random reasons. But to talk about such significant policy like tariffs, much less foreign policy, he is applying a machete when a scalpel is what's necessary.
It makes no sense to me whatsoever. To me, I think Donald Trump is the Grinch that stole Christmas. This time next year, we're going to be thinking about Christmas presents for all of our kids. And if he puts a 60% tariff on everything from China, those prices are going up. And now all of a sudden, your vision of everything you wanted to have for your kids at Christmas is gone. Donald Trump just crushed it. And it's not just crushing people's Christmases. Those small companies that support communities, now all of a sudden, not only did their costs go up 60%, but their businesses were just shot.
Right.
He is going to put who knows how many small businesses out of business.
Goldman Sachs, Moody's, Wall Street Journal most recently, 16 Nobel laureates have all examined our policies. Mine, as has been reviewed, will strengthen the economy. His will weaken it. It will incite inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year, Mark.
I don't think he's ever run a company where you have to go deal with the fundamental basis of your business. He has no clue. And the worst part is, he doesn't care.
Let's not forget he was handed so much of what he's had and has lost it. And he doesn't understand how people like you and so many others, and this is what I love about the American people, who are hardworking, who have grit, who are innovative, and who start with nothing. And make something. And that's something he doesn't get.
No. Obviously, I've been investing in startups forever. When I work with these companies, it's their whole life. They've given up something, and he doesn't realize that this person has worked 5 years, 10 years to save up enough money to start this business, or they just went for it. And he doesn't get that. And that's where the tax credit, and that's the other reason why talking about childcare and daycare, being able to have $6,000. So if you have a child and a newborn, you can keep on working.
A crib and a car seat. How are they going to actually afford, especially during that first year of the child's life? Right now, for so many of Gen Z, Gen X, the idea of the American dream is really elusive. It was an older concept.
It's tough.
And a big part of it being housing supply. We don't have enough. And so the prices go up. That's why I want to build more housing supply, but also work with developers and home builders to cut the red tape and to get them
hardcore
tax
entrepreneurs.
credits.
Hardcore entrepreneurs. Yeah, I think that is so important because, one of the questions I get all the time is about work-life balance. Because it's a challenge. You've got to pay the mortgage, you've got to pay the rent, whatever, you've got to pay the car payment and insurance. It's a tough decision to go start a business. Having a $6,000 tax credit gives you the comfort that you can get somebody to help your child. You can have some work-life balance. And I don't think he's never been in that situation. Not all those people started like Donald Trump with a silver spoon, right? These are people putting their life on the line.
It's that energy and that grit, to your point, that is going to spur us into the future, right? Because here's the other thing about entrepreneurs. You can't be a successful entrepreneur without actually thinking about where are things going.
Look, we're here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we're going to be talking to a bunch of kids. And I guarantee you, one of them is going to start a business, and that business just might be the next Nike, might be it's those kids that are going to change the world, invent the next technology.
The idea of knowing that it is possible for us, if we work and study something, that we can create something that improves and uplifts the human condition.
Of course.
That excites me to no end. Like that's where I see where we could actually combine a lot of our areas of focus.
For sure. And I wanted to let you know that as an entrepreneur, as an investor, as a geek, the things that you're doing matter. I'm getting more and more people emailing me, calling me, saying, maybe she really understands what it takes to be an entrepreneur, what it takes to be successful. And I know you've committed to that, so it's awesome.
Trump and MAGA extremists are already setting the groundwork to reject the results of the election should he lose. We must ring the alarms and pay attention and hold all of these corrupt cronies accountable, including Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, who, by the way, as I've said before in a previous video, he was the architect of the elector scandal, the fake electors from the 2020 election. And now he's literally Speaker of the House. And has even had, there's rumors going around that he might even deny certifying the election results. Even though at the latest rally that they gave, he was up there touting that they were the party of law and order and all of these lies, as he's literally endorsing a 34-time felon and an 88 count. He's been indicted for over 88 counts. And I'm sure that he'll actually get charged with all 88.
And I think with our little secret, we're going to do really well with the House, right? Our little secret is having a big impact. He and I have a secret. We'll tell you what it is when the race is over.
And he's broken more laws than that, so.
Hello, Madison Square Garden. Is New York ready to make America great again? My friends, I came here tonight so excited to be with you. I came off of the field to give you a very important field report. Now, I've been traveling all around the country, nonstop. We've been to the red states and the blue states. We've been to the safe districts and the swing districts. We've been all around America. And I'm going to tell you what's happening right now. I'm here to report something. There's something very powerful happening out there among the base, okay? I'm telling you, there's an energy out there that we have not seen before. And I am convinced that in 9 days, we are going to grow the House majority, we're going to take back the Senate, and send Donald Trump back to the White House. Let me tell you why that is. Because everywhere around the country, no matter where you live, everybody is fed up and they are fired up. They're fed up. It doesn't matter what demographic they're in. It doesn't matter what walk of life. They know that we cannot afford 4 more years of Kamala Harris in the White House. And we can't possibly afford turning the House or the Senate over to the Democrats. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you what I ask these groups all around the country. Do you want 4 more years of open borders? I don't think you do. No. Do you want 4 more years of high cost and inflation? You want 4 more years of rising crime in every community? No. How about 4 more years of woke ideology in our schools and our military? You want 4 more years of wars and weakness on the world stage? Nobody does. American voters are sick of it, and they want to change. Now listen, for the last 2 years, we've had a bit of a dilemma, right? The House has been the only firewall in Washington standing between Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, and the American people. Now, we played defense. We blocked their woke America Last agenda, and we passed solutions to all the great challenges facing the country. But here's the problem. They got stopped in the Senate. We also had the smallest Republican majority in U.S. history. But you know what the good news is? We're about to grow that majority. That's what's going to happen on November 5th. New York is going to make that happen. You're going to elect your incumbents here and our challengers, and you're going to make the big difference. And we need a Republican Senate so we can retire Chuck Schumer for good. And America needs, and everybody knows, no matter where we are in the country, we know we have to get Donald J. Trump back to the White House so we can get this thing fixed. When we do that, we're going to secure the border once for all. We're going to unleash American energy dominance again. We're going to lower the cost of living. We're going to support our allies and stand up to our adversaries. We're going to defend our rights and our freedoms and the troops and the veterans who fought for them. And we will protect the values and the principles that made America the greatest nation in the history of the world. I'll just leave you with this thought. We're not in a battle this time just between two different political parties. It's much deeper than that. There's something much more fundamental going on. We're in a battle between two completely different visions for who we are as a nation and who we're going to be. We revere the founding principles. We revere our Judeo-Christian foundations. We revere individual freedom and limited government and the rule of law and peace through strength and fiscal responsibility, free markets, human dignity, secure borders. But the other team doesn't anymore, my friends. This is not your father's Democratic Party. They are now full on to Marxism and socialism. They don't envision for us to save the founding principles and the greatest nation in the history of the world. Instead, what they envision for us is that we would be some sort of European-style Marxist borderless utopia. We all know that's a dangerous fool's errand. You know what's going to happen in 9 days? The American people are going to let their voices be heard. We are going to take this country back. We're going to restore the foundations, and we are truly going to make America great again. Thank you so much. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.
In a very deranged speech, he continued to push false claims about immigrants. Trump's been saying that, lying again about the polls, saying that they're leading by a lot or leading by a landslide. This is, it's just not true. First of all, they've been very close. The polls are actually showing Kamala Harris up by 4 points.
George, our new poll with Ipsos has Kamala Harris right now back in front, a 4-point lead, 51-47 in the matchup with former President Trump. That is up from about 2 points nationally a few weeks back.
New battleground state polling shows that Kamala Harris has effectively wiped out Trump's lead in all of the key swing states. In Michigan, the latest Bloomberg Morning Consult poll finds Harris leading Trump by 11 points. That is a major shift in that state. In all 6 other battleground states polled, Harris and Trump are in a statistical tie within the margin of error. Harris leads by 2 points in Arizona, Nevada, and Wisconsin. Trump leads Harris by 4 points in Pennsylvania and by 2 points in North Carolina. The candidates, they are running dead even in Georgia.
He's continued to push false claims about immigrants and the FEMA response as well. Trump tells Catholics that they are put on terrorist lists. When he was at the Al Smith dinner, he told them that they've been, and just in general at these rallies, he told them that they were put on terrorist lists, and just blatant lies. Biden is a Catholic. It makes no sense at all. I mean, just stupid. And he told the evangelicals they'll be next in a deranged rant in front of faith leaders at the latest.
And the FBI would send spies into Catholic churches. I don't know how many Catholics are here, but if you're Catholic, there is no way you can be voting for these people. These people are a nightmare. I don't know what they have against Catholics, but Catholics are treated worse than anybody. And
Trump has been pressed multiple times by Fox News hosts to coach him to say the right things. But again, he's doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down. Every time he keeps saying this enemy from within. He's been saying it for almost a month now, if not more, but on the record, he's been saying it for the last month, specifically amplifying it around October 14th. And a bizarre authoritarian dictatorship rants about sending military or National Guard after Democrats and anyone that criticizes him or doesn't bend the knee.
Democratic nominee for president, Vice President Kamala Harris, recently had an interview on Fox News where she accused Donald Trump of threatening to use the military against Americans who oppose him. Brandon Lewis from our Verified team looks into whether Donald Trump actually said that.
Vice President Kamala Harris was interviewed on Fox News and claimed former President Donald Trump threatened to use the military against Americans he calls the enemy within.
You and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people.
Multiple viewers, including Janny and John, messaged us asking if Trump really said that. So let's verify. Our sources are past statements by Trump and his campaign spokesman. We checked multiple interviews that Trump gave to Fox News Channel and found he actually said this multiple times, including twice last week. Here's what Trump said on October 13th in response to a question about whether he expects chaos on Election Day.
I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
Trump then reiterated his comments during a taped town hall with Fox News' Harris Faulkner on October 16th.
They're very, very different. And it is the enemy from within, and they're very dangerous.
So, yes, Trump has talked about using the military against Americans he called the enemy from within. His running mate, J.D. Vance, downplayed the remarks.
Would a Trump administration use the military to go after people who oppose Donald Trump?
Oh, of course not. Of course not.
While campaign spokesperson Stephen Chung, in a statement to Verify, said President Trump is 100% correct. Those who seek to undermine democracy by sowing chaos in our elections are a direct threat. With your Verify, I'm Brandon Lewis.
Wir versprechen Ihnen, dass wir die Kommunisten, Marxisten, Faschisten und die linksradikalen Verbrecher, die wie Ungeziefer in unserem Land leben, ausrotten werden. Aber wir holen sie nicht aus den verseuchten Ländern. Ich weiß nicht, ob man sie Menschen nennen kann. In einigen Fällen sind es meiner Meinung nach keine Menschen, sondern Tiere. Sie vergiften das Blut unseres Landes. Wir werden die größte Abschiebeaktion durchführen. Wenn ich nicht gewählt werde, wird es ein Blutbad geben. Ich bin eure Vergeltung. Ich möchte nur einen Tag lang Diktator sein.
He will close and sell off all of the Democratic news stations and newspapers and any businesses owned by Democrats or liberals.
Our leaders right now are so corrupt and so vile that if you assimilate into their culture, you're assimilating into like garbage liberal elite culture. You're not assimilating into traditional American culture. And so I this is a tough pickle for me. I don't even know what the right answer is here, because you can't just teach these things. You can't teach that we live in a great country if the leaders are actively aligned against it. So almost the thing that you need to do, step one in the process, is to totally replace, like rip out like a tumor, the current American leadership class, and then reinstall some sense of American, political religion.
We need to rip it out like a tumor and then install political religion. Man who is interviewing J.D. Vance here gets very excited about this idea, and it leads, this is important here, it leads J.D. Vance to explain sort of influences on his thought, where he gets his ideas on subjects like this.
You said something that I would like to zero down on. How do we effectively, quote, rip out the disgusting leadership class?
Oh, man. I mean,
because let me expand on that just a second, because and I'm going to give you a little cover here, because it's not just, obviously elections, that's one thing. Okay. But unfortunately, this evil leadership class has already taken over all of our institutions. Current pipeline is to turn them into those people that we just called evil and disgusting. How do we, aside from elections, how do we rip out this leadership class? So these institutions are corrupted and rotted to the core. This elite ideology is everywhere and in all the things. What other options do we have besides voting them out, which we're seeing is ineffectual?
Yeah. So again, this is like a tough question, but this is maybe the question that confronts us right now. There's this guy, Curtis Yarvin, who's written about some of these things.
Knowing chuckle there. There's this guy, Curtis Yarvin, who's written about some of these things. This is Curtis Yarvin, who J.D. Vance is citing here as he is talking about the need to, seize the universities, use the government to destroy businesses who aren't right wing, talking about needing to rip out the American system like a tumor. Here's the guy he is citing as his sort of the source of his his thinking on these matters.
So I've reduced this very complicated problem to a simple 4-letter acronym, which is RAGE. And RAGE stands for Retire All Government Employees. Very, very simple. Now, the problem with this is, why have we never heard this before? Why has no one ever suggested, let's just get rid of this thing? You have a government in Washington, you're either for it or against it. What is government? A government is just a corporation which owns a country. Nothing more, nothing less. It so happens that our sovereign corporation is very poorly managed. And there's a very simple way to replace that, which is what we do to all corporations that have failed. We simply delete them. We haven't been able to do that with our government for 200 years. So it's gotten a little bit stale.
We should delete the U.S. government because it's stale. It has been around for too long. We haven't been able to do that, meaning delete our government for 200 years, so it's gotten a bit stale. It's been around too long. So what would that entail, deleting the U.S. government?
The other thing about getting rid of your government is you can't just say, well, the limits of the government are the limits of the formal government. You have to say, well, what is the system actually? And it includes a lot of things that are called NGOs, things that are called universities, things that are funded by the state. It's a very, very large system, and it all needs to be destroyed. Fortunately, there's a lot of talented Americans who actually know how to run things and make things work and are generalists. And you can just get these people, put them in a position of responsibility, and have them do their thing. And finally, you need a CEO, and a national CEO is what's called a dictator. It's the same thing. There's no difference between a CEO and a dictator. If Americans want to change their government, they're going to have to get over their dictator phobia.
If Americans want to change their government, they're going to have to get over their dictator phobia.
As he assigns developers to develop them as his own installments. And as he aligns more with Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini in very anti-democratic, un-American grievances, favorability ratings are actually in Kamala Harris's favor, where she leads in all categories except for grocery prices, where Trump is up by 2% within the margin of error. Kamala Harris is leading an amazing coalition of bipartisanship support as Republicans have come across the aisle in the most important, the most consequential election of our lifetimes. Now more than any other time in history, it is important that we stand together and we reject Project 2025 and the MAGA radical agenda that Republicans have been pushing for. The Republicans in office aim to take our rights away and freedoms while promising the opposite. And sadly, so many of the ignorant, naive, weak-minded, and racist individuals whom have fed into this fear-mongering, blatant lies and disinformation for the better part of the last decade. And although time and time again he has shown us his true colors, and yet these MAGA supporters keep running back for more. Many of them are used like pawns to interrupt the certification of Biden's election wins. In the first time in history there wasn't a peaceful transfer of power. They also sent a violent mob to the Capitol. Treasonous Trump shouldn't ever be in a position of power again for his blatant roles that he played in the insurrection, and he's a twice impeached president. I could go on and on and on for all the reasons that he shouldn't be in power again. Not to mention he's a narcissist, sociopath, psychopath, pathological liar. Trump, he has no place in politics, and he doesn't even have any policies for the people. His policies are literally to take our rights away, and they're laid out in Project 2025, which sadly his supporters don't. They're too lazy to look up. Shady Vance is bringing up the peaceful protesters that protested the George Floyd murder and completely mischaracterizing them as if they had no reason to be out there protesting.
Donald Trump wants to take our country backward, but we are not going back. We are not going back.
Tear gas was used to remove peaceful protesters from Lafayette Park.
The president setting up this photo op for himself, dispersing peaceful protesters. He's holding up a Bible.
This is a mass grave being dug for coronavirus victims at New York City's Potter's Field.
They were peaceful people. These were great people. The love in the air, I've never seen anything like it.
A group on one side and you had a group on the other. Very fine people on both sides.
You can do anything. Grab them by the pussy.
I was able to terminate Roe v. Wade.
We are not going back.
They've been continuing to double down and push very racist rhetoric, xenophobia, and more. Obama recently made a point as well at one of the rallies that when he was president and in this current presidency of Joe Biden and the Trump presidency, between all three of them, only one of them signed their name and wanted their name to be on the stimulus checks, and that was Trump. Because once again, it wasn't about the people, it was about his own narcissism, his own political gain, his own benefit, his own, and that wasn't his money. It's not, he wasn't giving people his own personal money. It's disgusting, really, and that's what actually delayed the checks being mailed out to people, was the fact that he wanted to put his name on every single one of them. Just wrong. And then, in a bizarre, unhinged rant, Tucker Carlson went on and on and on, calling a grown man, Trump, daddy. I've never heard supposedly a heterosexual male call, in his late 50s, call another male daddy, unless he was gay. I have nothing against the LGBTQ community, obviously, if you know. I mean, come on now. But what I do have a problem with is these undercover MFers that want to try to throw homophobia and disinformation and propaganda against the community when you're flaming homo. I have a problem with that. So, again, we have these unhinged, insane, socially awkward creeps giving us lectures, threatening spankings, and all of this unhinged, very misogynistic rhetoric. Just bizarre. I'm going to try to play the clip here and show you it.
Kamala Harris shouldn't have a job. She has no skills. How did we wind up with a system where Kamala Harris, you couldn't change the tire on your truck, much less drive it? How did she wind up at the top of the pyramid? And then once she's there, she lectures you like you did something. It's too much. You can't allow that. It's an offense against the truth, against reality, and against justice itself. And the second reason you can't allow it is very familiar to anyone who has children, which is if you allow it, you will encourage more of it. If you allow people to get away with things that are completely over the top and outrageous, if you allow your 2-year-old to smear the contents of his diapers on the wall of your living room, and you do nothing about it, if you allow your 14-year-old to light a joint at the breakfast table, if you allow your hormone-addled 15-year-old daughter to slam the door of her bedroom and give you the finger, you're going to get more of it. And those kids are going to wind up in rehab. It's not good for you, and it's not good for them. No. There has to be a point at which dad comes home. Yeah, that's right. Dad comes home. And he's pissed. Dad is pissed. He's not vengeful. He loves his children. Disobedient as they may be, he loves them. Because they're his children, they live in his house. But he's very disappointed in their behavior. And he's going to have to let them know. He's going to have to get to your room right now and think about what you did. And when Dad gets home, you know what he says? You've been a bad girl. You've been a bad little girl, and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now. And no, it's not going to hurt me more than it hurts you. No, it's not. I'm not going to lie. This is going to hurt you a lot more than it hurts me. And you earned this. You're getting a vigorous spanking because you've been a bad girl. And it has to be this way. It has to be this way because it's true. And you're only going to get better when you take responsibility for what you did. That's not said in the spirit of hate. It's not said in the spirit of vengeance or bigotry. Far from it. It's said in the spirit of justice, which is the purest and best thing there is. And without it, things fall apart. The Democratic Party machine, and notice I'm not beating up on Kamala Harris, who's just a hapless victim who happened to be there in the right color, so they grabbed her. Tim Walz, they needed some, whatever Tim Walz is. They needed a weak man, because it is the party of weak men and unhappy women. One of which leads to the other, by the way. Where you find weak men, you will inevitably find unhappy women. Sorry. And they make them on purpose. They weaken the men to drive the women insane, to have the most consistent voting bloc ever in the history of politics. Unhappy women, made unhappy by weak men. But it could be anybody. It could be anybody. Kamala Harris is just a stand-in. She's a cardboard cutout. She has a soul. God created her. I'm not attacking her true humanity. But there's nothing there. It doesn't matter. If it wasn't Kamala Harris, it would be, I don't know, Pete Buttigieg or whatever. Who are these people? It doesn't matter. They're the cutouts. They work for the machine. They're totally dispensable. They're replaceable. And they need to have limits set for them.
So yeah, it's almost, again, like a humiliation ritual, almost like what Trump did to Vance when Vance was on town hall with Chris Cuomo, and Trump called in and was like, wanted to, because he wasn't getting enough attention, I guess, and didn't want Vance to upstage him, he called in and asked Chris Cuomo and Vance how brilliant he was in third person. Just bizarre, very weird. This is not normal, people. I mean, it's just not normal. It's like the Twilight Zone. I'm going to try to play that clip for you.
Senator, you're going to want to sit down for this one.
Oh, no.
Not unlike Beetlejuice. If you invoke the former president's names too many times in a row, he's going to want to weigh in on what is being said about him. And we have a call right now from former President Donald John Trump. He wants to weigh in. Mr. President, I know there's a little bit of a delay. Can you hear us? And what is your question for the senator?
Well, I can hear you, Chris, and I do have a question, and I think it'll be quite an interesting one. The answer should be easy. How brilliant is Donald J. Trump?
Take your time. Think about it.
Well, first of all, sir, this is supposed to be undecided voters. I would hope that I have your vote, of all people. But here's first of all, sir, of course, you're very brilliant, and we both agree. We both agree that it's important to have very smart people running our government. But here's
okay. So again, we have these deranged, extreme far-right radicals that are literally trying to desensitize the public, trying to make people accustomed to this violent rhetoric, and it's un-American and dangerous, and it has no place here in the free world. Hopefully you learned something in this video that you didn't already know. Drop some comments down below. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Let me know what you think about the daddy rant and how weird that is. I mean, for a grown man to be, saying, and seems like Tucker wants to be bent over Trump's knee, maybe. Maybe they already have, maybe that's what they do, I don't know. But once again, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, if you could do that, I'd appreciate it. Please like and share my videos, and we'll see you next time.